Hi, I'm Mike DiGirolamo, a partner and producer with Cimaptico Studios, where we live stream conversations about complex business and social challenges with professionals like yourself who are working on the same issues. Our shows are live streamed in front of a global audience on Cimaptico.tv. I'm hosting conversations with journalists, filmmakers, authors, entertainers, and other folks in the media on the Impact Media channel. If you're interested in the work that these professionals are doing, you came to the right place. If you work in the media and you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to me. I'm always looking for compelling creators to speak with about the work that they are doing. With that said, I'm glad you're here. Please sit back and enjoy the conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Impact Media. Today, my guest is Sarah Eltsuki. She is an architect and designer based in Paris, focused on creating next-generation wearable products using digital design and 3D printing techniques to offer sustainability and new materials to the fashion industry. Her company, Spectra Design Studio, is a design-focused innovation firm working at the intersection of architecture, product, and fashion design. And today she's going to talk about how we can make fashion sustainable by integrating technology into the fashion industry. She's also going to explore the challenges the fashion industry is facing due to the ongoing pandemic and help us recognize different concepts to describe brands' way of approaching sustainability. So joining us from Paris, Sarah, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So we're going to be talking about the fashion industry and sustainability within it, particularly among this COVID-19 pandemic. But just to give the audience a bit of context, what's it like right there in Paris right now during this second wave that we seem to be experiencing? How is the situation?
So it's been on and off in Paris. Right before confinement, we had the right. So there was the first wave, and there was that confinement. Fashion weeks got cancelled, obviously, but then life came back to normal during the summer, and then fashion events resumed, but at a distance, of course. But all the malls and all the context was basically like very flexible, which led to the high numbers of cases. This is why we're currently in a second confinement, and we're all at our homes, and it's practically strict. No one is allowed to go out unless they have work that they cannot do remotely. It's a bit tough, and the fashion industry is definitely struggling again, knowing that there's a new fashion week coming up in January.
All right, and we're going to get into those challenges more about them. But why don't you go ahead and talk to us about the fashion industry and sustainability as a whole? Can you define for us when you talk about sustainability? It's a pretty large term. What does that mean in terms of the fashion industry?
So first, let's begin with the fashion industry in general. Just to give you some context about it and give the audience a little bit of background to what I'm talking about, the fashion industry is an immense industry that includes garments, footwear, jewelry, and cosmetics. It has been steadily growing over the past at least 10 years. In 2016, it was estimated to be worth $2.4 trillion. And that's a lot of zeros. It is, if it is ranked alongside individual countries' GDPs, it will represent the world's seventh largest economy. That's how big of an industry we're talking about. In 2014, we bought around 1.2 billion jeans worldwide, and that's a lot of jeans. Just for you to like understand the impact of this huge industry. Let's ask ourselves, what did it take to really make these 1.2 billion jeans? Like, what kind of resources it takes? Because there's cotton, and with that, there's harvesting, there's water consumption, and fertilizers, and so on. There's labor force, and then there are the dyes and the chemicals that work from within. We're talking about the third largest water consumer in the world, the fashion industry. We're talking about a 1 ton, a truck full, like a truck that holds 1 ton of clothes being dumped every 1 minute, and that's a lot of waste. So that's the kind of industry we're talking about. In the past few years, everyone was talking about sustainability and including sustainability in their mission statement and their corporate social responsibility. But in an era where sustainability has become so fashionable, there are a lot of confusion surrounding the terms and the related concepts, especially when it comes to sustainability in fashion. And given the fact that the fashion industry is one of the major polluting industries in the world. So back to your question, what is sustainable fashion? And I will add another question to it. Can anyone claim it? Can any brand claim it? Literally speaking, sustainability means avoiding the exhaustion of natural resources, okay? It generally extends to the social systems, ensuring that they promote the well-being of all stakeholders, individuals, and communities alike. Sustainability is also about durability, such environmental, social, economic systems and industries. They must be designed to be balanced and to be able to be sustained on a long term, which leads us to identify what sustainable fashion really is. It is simply about encouraging a fashion industry that takes the long term approach to design. We're talking about manufacturing and consumption of clothes and accessories. Fashion that really creates good while avoiding to cause harm, be it to people, to planets, or to the animal. So, can any fashion retailer really claim to be sustainable if they are focusing on one side of the sustainability part? Because today, when we talk about sustainability, as I said, it's not just one part that we're talking about. It's not just the material. It's not just the labor force. It's not just the delivery part or the packaging part. It's a whole supply chain that really needs to be targeted at all levels if it's feasible, and it should be feasible. This kind of effort brands need to put as such. So, being and beyond using only sustainable fabrics, to be a sustainable fashion business, a brand needs to embrace the entire supply chain of their products.
And so when we
Um,
talk, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When we talk about the supply chain, this is something that, a lot of people, um, a personal question I have. When certain, conglomerates or corporations say, okay, we're going to go sustainable, we're not going to cause any more like deforestation, for instance. How do we track and trace to make sure that these companies are doing that? And how does the fashion industry tackle that specific problem?
Transparency is very important. It's something that we're gonna talk about later on the episode. Transparency of the brand comes within its mission and values and ethics, and specifically saying brands with a mission usually should have a transparency report where they share with the consumers everything when it comes to data on how their material was sourced, how is the cloth made, how was it shipped, where was it made, and all sorts of information. And how can the fashion industry really track all those kinds of information or data? It's something that has been trending the past few years, and I think it will become much more massive the coming few years. Is that there are several consumer-based initiatives that consumers just started, which is one of them, for example, is the fashion revolution, FashRev, and it basically just asks a very main question: where are my clothes made and who made them? Who made my clothes? So when consumers, and those are the people that you as a brand make money of, when the consumers come and say that I want explanation, I want details, where is my clothes really made and who are making them and how is it made? What kind of fabric? No, no, no. All sorts of questions that consumers are raising and they are raging about it makes brands want to commit to a certain social responsibility phase and want to be transparent about it and share. Like it encourages them to share this kind of data information.
Great. I mean, yeah, it's good to know that that social pressure is also giving companies more incentive to go that route. Um, Before we get further into sustainability, let's go ahead and talk about COVID-19 challenges then. I'm guessing this is impacting obviously the supply chain as we know. But can you boil down for us, what are the main challenges the fashion industry is facing amidst the pandemic?
So basically, it's a lot of things. We already know that the COVID-19 pandemic has showed limits to so many businesses, not just the fashion industry. It has harmed a lot of other industries and markets as well. But the fashion industry has been hit the hardest, I believe, because basically the industry is very massive. The industry is very wealthy, it's very big. However, within all the production methodology that it follows, it's still super, super traditional. In the way they design, they do it physically and they do it by hand or like a computer, Photoshop, and so on. And when it comes to prototyping, they produce physical prototypes. And when it comes to showcasing, they do events and showrooms and runways and so on. So having so much traditional methods in the whole process made it super challenging for this industry during the pandemic in specific. They couldn't do anything. All shows were canceled, all collections were paused, even some of the collections that were in the design process were stopped, those that were under manufacturing stopped, and so on. It really hit it very hard and it showed the limit of it. And within just few weeks, technology became the silver bullet of this industry. And lots of changes are happening in the fashion industry. As new consumption and lifestyle habits are shaping up, the changes could have long-term repercussions on the consumer trends and the relationship with the luxury world. So I'm gonna jump into like try and introduce some of the major trends that have been recently not necessarily introduced to the fashion industry. Maybe they have been introduced ahead of the pandemic, but they have been definitely endorsed and they have grown with the pandemic. One of those trends would be embracing the digital transformation, which includes like virtual stores, e-commerce, and so on. There's the part where brands and designers they limited budgets, and by that we mean they reduced the number of collections that they produce per year. Some brands they produce up to 10 or 12 collections per year, and that's so many. Um, they also some of the brands they skip the calendar and so on. Other brands they shift towards more responsible luxury, and that's basically an inclination towards a more timeless luxury that can be ethically committed. So we're talking about pieces that are timeless, that would never fade in time or lose its trendiness and so on. Um, Another trend would be consumers. We already talked about this, endorsing brands with a mission. So now, whenever a brand, even if it's fresh and young, has a mission, it's automatically endorsed by so many generations that are encouraging sustainability and promoting it as well. And the next big thing, which is opting for virtual shows. And we're talking about computer simulated shows that have been the biggest trend, and it's part of the work that we do at Spitra. Um, Basically, just to give you some grounds to this service that we offer and that is now available for the fashion industry. What we do is that we work with brands. We're not a fashion brand. We work with labels to help them and offer them the space and tools needed for them to convert their physical process into a digital one. So now with the virtual shows, we are allowing designers to be able to integrate digital design as part of their design process. So we're talking about the first preliminary stage of producing a collection, which is basically sketching out designs, producing prototypes, and so on. All of this, we're translating it into a computer simulated process where the designer can see the digital model wearing the 3D garments and would be able to simulate it or share it on their social media or create a virtual runway, a digital runway without having anyone physical. It would be basically like a video game, but as realistic as possible with avatars, customizable, of course, and their garments. And from there, designers, they simply have a lot of like access to a lot of other tools, such as, for example, augmented reality, they can now integrate it as part of their e-commerce websites because they already have the 3D files of their items. They can also like integrate on-demand manufacturing, knowing that their prototypes and their designs are now computer simulated with a real-time development and render. So like consumers can now see the collection without actually having to produce it. So I think this is the next game changer in the industry. And another step, which is these 3D files that they offer, would be access to 3D printing. Now, I know not so many people know what 3D printing is when it comes to the fashion industry, because like this kind of innovation has been widely available um, in other spots and in other industries, but not the fashion industry. But what I'm trying to tell you is that with the introduction of 3D printing and with the introduction of our patented Adre engineered machines, we are allowing the accessibility to new materials to the industry that is very polluting. We're allowing the introduction of materials that are zero waste, cruelty-free, and fully recyclable. And with that, 3D printing can be a tool for the next level of sustainability in fashion. From design to manufacturing to the use of material, it substantially reduces the impact on the whole supply chain. It produces smaller carbon footprint. It does not produce waste because the machine uses the exact amount of materials needed. It uses recycled and biodegradable material that extends the life of existing products. So as 3D printing is evolving at a fast pace, it is gaining popularity with more and more eco-friendly fashion designers, embracing 3D and technology and contributing to making the industry more sustainable.
So this is a question that I just want to make sure that folks who aren't familiar with 3D printing get like a full picture of this, especially the materials that are used. You said that they're recycled materials. Where are these recycled materials coming from?
So right now we work with at some point we wanted to produce this raw material in-house. And that's everything that we do within the startup is that everything that we use, we do it in-house, the 3D printing, the digitization, everything. But when it came to the material, it's a lot of labor work that will consume a lot of time. So what happened is that we collaborated with a supplier, and what this supplier has to do is basically collect some sorts of plastic and sort it in a kind of manner that they see fit. And from there, they can produce filaments that are 3D printable. And within using our engineered machines, they are able to produce a certain kind of flexibility with this material that can be actually wearable. And we're talking about 3D. So 3D printing has been going in the fashion industry for like 7 years, but it hasn't been really wearable and it's not as accessible as possible. And what we're trying to do is to make it accessible and affordable by making it actually wearable in everyday life.
And can you talk a bit more about the affordability factor? What was kind of keeping it from being affordable before, and what technology innovation have you offered that's making it more affordable?
So before, you as a brand who wanted to integrate this kind of tech as part of your collections, you have to go through different stages. You have to go to a digital designer so that you can produce the 3D file that you want to produce. And that's a different kind of pay. And then you have to go to a fabrication lab, which is usually a space for prototyping. And it's basically for hobbyists. Unless you want to produce a really good finished product, you'd have to go to an industrial space where they charge you a fortune. So the problem is that it's not affordable in terms of having different stakeholders for you as a designer to pay to produce your end product. So that's one. But also in terms of knowing what kind of things can be done and can be printed and can be executed and can be commercialized, because at the end of the day, we all know that fashion brands want to be sustainable because that's the kind of consumer pressure that's happening. But at some point, these brands, they want to monetize and they want to make money. They don't want to lose money in the process. So that's a very important point that Fab Labs have not been focusing on simply because their target audience is not fashion designers. So when we talk about affordability and accessibility, we're talking about a process that is helping designers not only be sustainable, but be cost effective. So using our technology, the designer is actually saving 60% of his cost and 80% of his time.
And that's, wow, that's a lot of savings. And also I wanted to ask you a bit, like, this also is kind of, I mean, well, not kind of, it is taking pressure off the supply chain because you're offering an alternate material source. People don't necessarily have to go to their old suppliers necessarily. They can come to you, and that and the fact that you're not a fashion label, you are someone who works with them. So you are helping them stay in business without having to exacerbate an already under pressure COVID-19 ridden supply chain, in essence.
Exactly. And the question that we receive more often is that will this machine replace human labor? It does not, because the 3D printer cannot finalize that. It can finalize, but that's not the essence of the fashion industry. Like when it comes to different industries, a fab lab would produce an end product, maybe, yes. But when it comes to the fashion industry, and when you go towards more into the luxury part of this industry, it's very human oriented. It's a very human centered design section that cannot work by eliminating human labor. So for us, we release a little bit of the force. We release the hard work and the labor work that is kind of imposed on those factories by introducing 3D printing farms, but we do not eliminate the factor of the human labor, because those people who are sewing and who are currently like assembling these pieces will continue to assemble these pieces, but instead of assembling cotton and leather, animal leather, and so on, they are simply assembling recycled plastic that is made in a way that is very similar to leather in terms of texture.
That's a great point. I want to get to one question here we have from Sarah. She's asking, where do you want to see your clothes sold?
Where do you want to see them sold? Everywhere. because that's the kind of mission that we've done, is that we're trying to make it accessible to any sort of segment within the fashion industry. So our early adopters are luxury designers and haute couture. However, we want to make it as accessible as possible to any sort of fashion brand. So we wanted to make it accessible when it comes to garments, to shoes, to menswear, women's wear, kids wear, and so on. But it takes time and it takes a lot of R&D as part of the work. And we're currently in conversations with big groups, big fashion groups that are based in Paris, such as Kering, for example. So Kering, they host different brands such as Gucci, Balenciaga, and so on. And if you'd ask me who would I like to see using our technology, I would really like to see those big brands and big houses such as Kering and LVMH using our technology, because they influence the rest of the designers and they have a lot of reach, and they do have a lot of very big influence on not just existing designers, but young designers who are coming abroad.
That's great. And where can people reach out to you if they want to work with you?
So they can reach out via any kind of channel that we've already launched. I have my email up here, and there's our website. They can ask for a quotation. There's our social media channels, and it's pretty simple.
Great. Well, we've reached the end of the episode. I have some more questions that we're going to get to, so just sit tight while we transition into just chatting.